I'm not disputing, I'm not here at all to try to question anyone's due diligence. Or for all I know, in my case, lack of, whatever. But it's so obvious to, I mean, I'll just say, speaking from my own personal experience, when I ran for the neighborhood council, I did what you didn't have to do, but some of us did, which is you knocked on doors. You knocked on doors, you talked about issues. You did it, in my case at least, not out of a sense of personal agenda, but because it's appropriate to what some of us think of as being the right way to connect yourself in politics and to embody what you think is hopefully the best you can imagine, at least in politics. And I've worked in many campaigns over the course of time. And I know the conversations that were had about city and community interest and about what at least I thought, what I understood neighborhood councils to be. And I had the experience with Greg working in Joel Wax's office, which has something to do with the creation of neighborhood councils. It was, I think, vitals to neighborhood councils, and indeed to the city, and indeed to the public, to the extent that neighborhood councils mean anything, for that kind of engagement with the public to occur. Whether or not I'm perfect, imperfect, horrible, great candidates, doesn't matter. I got the most votes. It had to do with knocking on doors. It had to do with talking about neighborhood councils. And those are people who, we have 2 polling places in that election, but they were not close to my side of town. You know, ironically, the fourth selected by the 4th of 5 recommended polling places is the one that was selected. It's the one that, if I run for re-election, would be easiest, slam dunk. But the point is that the ones that were far away, we were able to have very interesting and extensive conversations with people, because being realistic and hopefully being idealistic meant you could still knock on people's doors and ask them to participate in the process where they knew they could vote by mail. They knew they had a way of voting without going to the other side of town. In this case, it would be a 6-hour window or whatever, and driving far away. It really does. It is a transformative thing. In Silver Lake, and I believe in most places, in the worst sense possible, because it's not even a question of who votes or who doesn't. It's what makes it almost ridiculous to knock on someone's door. It really does become, I mean, the bottom line of this, I think, I could be wrong, I think that is in many cases, people, if they live a block away from a polling place, are going to, get the neighbors to come and vote. It makes it really, and I'm not even talking about the person who works in that one period of time, who no longer can vote by mail, and doesn't have other avenues as of now to vote, and who does not qualify as the physically incapacitated and unable to vote by mail. That to me is still, they're effectively disenfranchised, but even taking out of the picture those people, it really does make it absurd in the extreme, I think about asking people who live on one side of town to come and vote. It's very hard and difficult to do, to devote that time. It puts the burden so much on the convincing people to take neighborhood councils so seriously. They'll go that far out of their way, and yet the outcome of that difficulty, of that pressure, will be so many fewer people will vote, I think, that it will be in the future, after 2010, it will be that much more difficult to convince people to take neighborhood councils seriously, because the big story will be how whatever percentage, half or whatever, who voted in the past. Instead of moving forward, which I think is where neighborhood councils have been heading, we are looking, as I said, to me it's just a significant body blow. So, granted, and I'm sorry for going on this length, but I grant that there's been a process that's been open where you've listened. To me, the issue is, maybe only belatedly it's becoming clear to me, there's a substantial crisis for neighborhood councils, which I think many throughout the city who participate in neighborhood councils think is definitively about to happen, which is that people aren't going to vote because it's going to be that much more difficult to vote than ever before. And to me, it's almost not enough to say, as admirable as the process has been, that that's sufficient. As admirable, given as open about, gee, you've seen the financial issues coming along, that's sufficient, that people have had a chance to contribute. To me, the sufficiency is if we rise to the challenge of saying, is there anything we can do? Are we really asking what we can do? And listen, again, it is fair to say I'm speaking for one alliance in this
Well,
regard.
I think one of the points you made early on about, each group feeling differently and each person potentially feeling differently. Apparently, Commissioner Abrams took an informal survey, and we don't even know to who. And the prevailing group of people he spoke to were opposed to vote by mail. Now that's, neither here nor there, because clearly some people are going to be for it, and some people are going to be against it. And the ideal world, it would be an option that we could present. We are not at that place this year where we can present that option, and it is 100% a financial issue. So, on a go-forward basis, is there anything we can do? The issue is money. We can't at this point go neighborhood council by neighborhood council and say, hey, you want to pay for it, you want to pay for it. Can't do it. The structure's set up or it's not set up. And if we did go to a cafeteria plan, we would have to plan way further in advance and give everybody that option so that they know 2 years down the line if the city isn't going to pay for it and we can pay for it and we want it, that we can do it. But unless the bulk of the money shows up right now for vote by mail, and that's $450 grand, we're not doing it.
Holly, when I came in, you were going through a very interesting list